Hi, welcome everybody. We are excited to be welcoming you to today's webinar on trees, people, and technology. I'm going to give everybody just 1 minute while we get comfortable and get things set up. So we'll be right back in 1 minute. All right, looks like everyone has pretty much arrived. So let's go ahead and get started. So again, today we are excited to be wrapping up our summer webinar series with Treeconomics and Davey Tree. This is our 4th webinar for this summer webinar series. We started off at the beginning of the summer, feels like a year ago, but it was not that long ago, talking about urban forest master plans. And then we talked about tree planting strategies and went further into the world of iTree and quantifying the benefits of our urban forest. And today I think we have saved the best for last, and we are here talking about trees, people, and technology. So it's a big topic with a lot of opportunity for discussion. So I'm excited to be talking today with our esteemed panel of Danielle Hill and Haley Rogers. So Danny, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay, great. Thanks, Josh. So hi, everyone. My name is Danny. I'm one of the urban forest consultants at Treeconomics. I've been with Treeconomics for just over a year now, and I work on a whole range of projects. So anything from sort of iTree Eco, sort of big sample projects across cities, to really bespoke projects for clients. And at the moment, working quite a lot of collaborative projects with other organisations. So a really varied role, but really interesting.
Great, thanks, Danny. And we have with Plymouth Tree Partnership, Haley Rogers. Haley, you want to introduce yourself?
Yep. Hi, thanks. Really great to be here. So, yeah, I'm Haley. I'm with Plymouth Tree Partnership, which is a small charity in Plymouth coordinating the planting and care of urban trees across the city. I joined Plymouth Tree Partnership in March last year at the start of the city's 15-year plan for trees. So we work quite closely with the City Council and other partners, and I've managed the initial sort of starting projects of that 15-year plan, which I'll go on to talk about later.
All right, thank you, Danny and Haley. And I'm Josh Bohanek. I am with the Davey Tree Expert Company in our consulting division, and I work in the states, across the whole states, and internationally, and have been very excited about this opportunity to partner with Treeconomics and in our summer webinar series here under Planning the Urban Forest. So again, today we're going to be talking trees, people, and technology. We're going to go ahead and turn off our webcams so you can focus on the actual webinar. And at the end, we will turn them back on when we do a live Q&A. So thanks, everybody, and look forward to chatting with you at the end. So, but before we get too far into it, I do want to give you just a couple logistics for today's webinar. Just so you know, the session is being recorded for your viewing pleasure later. It does have an interactive polling component. This is to help us better understand who you are out there and what your priorities are for today, so we can make sure that we focus our attention on that. There is a robust question feature built into today, so go ahead and ask your questions throughout the session. You might as well, and we'll try to answer some of them on the fly, but we will save some of the best ones for a live Q&A. In the event that we can't get to all of them, we'll try our best to respond individually to you as well. So if you want, go ahead and type into the Q question section, maybe where you're from, get comfortable with that. It's always exciting to hear and see. I think last time we had over a dozen countries represented. There is a handout of today's PDF version of today's presentation as well that you can download. So go ahead and download that if you're interested. If you have an issue with that, just send me an email and I'll be happy to get you another version of it. You will receive a follow-up email at the end with a quick survey. Just love your feedback and make sure that we're doing a good job here for you and any other ideas you might have. If you include your CEU number in the survey, I can actually submit that to ISA for you. Again, that's for the International Society of Arboriculture, their continuing education units. If you don't have one, don't worry, it's not a big deal, but it is approved for one ISA CEU. There will be a link to the recording as well that you can share with colleagues or keep as a reference. And you will get a certificate of attendance as well in case you want to get a continuing education unit from somebody else besides ISA, or just show that you actually spent this hour learning something. And at the end of the presentation, there will be a final slide which will show the ISA CEU number as well if you want to self-report yours. All right, so let's get into it. So today we are talking about trees, people, and technology, and I'm particularly excited about this convergence and this confluence, if you will, and of where they overlap and where they meet to it. I'm trying to figure out what to call it, y'all, but I'm kind of working on intersectionality, or the intersection of trees, technology, and people is really what we're talking about today. And we thought the best way to explain that is to start off with the technology and start off with a kind of a broad stroke, if you will, of the kind of current status of some of the urban forestry technology. And then Danny is going to go into the trees, the workhorses of their environment. And then Haley is going to bring it all together with the people and talk about how the technology and the trees have been able to better Plymouth's urban forest and the people within it. So that's our agenda and our format for today. And again, we're kind of coalescing around this idea of where trees, people, and technology intersect. Now, I think it's important to understand that I don't think technology is ever going to replace us as arborists, foresters, environmentalists, advocates. But I will say, I do believe that people that adapt and use technology will replace people that don't. So this is just kind of my piece of advice that, I don't expect us all to keep up with everything in the technological world, but I think it's up to us as professionals to better our industry and to, figure out how we can leverage technology to ultimately tell our story. I think lots of us in the urban forestry world or the community forestry world or the arboriculture world are in this for a particular passion about the environment, about nature, about trees. And, we're really having a moment right now with some of the attention around climate change, with some of the initiatives around trillion trees, with some of the trees are now, and it's particularly exciting. And I really do believe that part of that is because of the technology, is that we've been able to use that and create really interesting maps to talk about the benefits of trees, but most importantly, to tell our story about trees. So as we get into the technology, I think that's such a broad subject. It's hard to actually narrow it down into, a 10-minute or even an hour or a one-day session. But I think of it in urban forestry terms as there's three types of technology. There's top-down technology, which looks at like your airplane view or your aerial view of your urban forest. You have bottom-up technology, which is looking at the trees in front of your house and the forest as you experience it from your your viewpoint on the ground. And then we have this ever increasing and ever growing component of our applications on our phones. It's completely mind-boggling how powerful these phones have gotten, and it's the sky is endless there. For today's purposes, I'm going to touch on a couple, just one or two versions of each of these. By no means is this exhaustive, but I just want to give you just again a brief glimpse at some of the newer technology around these urban forestry pieces. So, but before I do that, we're going to go ahead and get you comfortable with the idea of a poll. And I'm going to launch our first poll. And it's really around, do you know what your urban forest looks like? And do you know where it is? So go ahead and open this up for a minute, and let's go ahead and tell us what you know. All right. This is good practice for election season, right? If you're in the States, we're getting excited about new elections, so vote. All right, so I'm gonna leave this up for just one more second. I'm gonna go ahead and close it out, and then I'm gonna share the results of it. And kind of surprisingly, over 40%, 50% know both the location and condition of your urban forest. And then, the other are working on it. And of course, a couple don't have a clue. So that's actually a little bit surprising. I think most people I talk to don't have a clue. So that's exciting. We got a good base of knowledge here to work off of. So I think, at the base level, some of the most exciting technology that came out the last 10 years is this idea of using aerial imagery or satellite imagery to map our urban forest. And really what that did is that really gave us a big sense of where our urban forest is. And since then, we've been able to use that technology to refine it and get really, really exact, as well as overlay additional layers and tell us even more about it. But probably the most powerful part of an urban tree canopy analysis is, visually demonstrating where the urban forest is and breaking it into sections and setting canopy goals. A lot of times canopy goals are set without any real science or data behind it, and these can allow you to do that. And you can overlay and you can create condition maps. You can overlay and create critical forest. You can make it political if you want. The power in a tree canopy analysis is really the additional analysis with it. But more than anything, it tells you and it gives you a map and a visualization. One of the strengths, and we talked about this in our second webinar on tree planting strategies, is creating priority planting maps. And with that, I also want to talk about another cool piece of technology called from ESRI and the story maps. So this allows you to take complex data, complex theories like urban forest master plans, and put them out there on the web for your community to easily understand and more visually understand the data that you're trying to tell. And it allows people to, zoom in and really understand and interact with the data in a different way. So it's rather than have to toggle on and off layers or have to know how to use a ESRI product or a special software, it's just on the web, and they can't edit, but you can tell your story with a map. So I think we're sending out a link to that in the chat as well, so you can visualize and see that. And these can be really customized. So it's a cool way of using technology to talk. Another cool element to top-down approach is LiDAR. And here we have a really cool project that we did with partners in Quantum Spatial for the Green Heart project in Louisville, Kentucky, in the States, where we used really high resolution LiDAR data. And we were looking at measuring the biomass and the leaf area index of the urban forest so that we can understand what it's doing and how it is impacting the health of humans, looking at the amount of air pollution it's taking up, looking at the proximity to air-conditioned buildings to people, and thinking about the true encompassing biomass. And you can see in this image, we were able to use that LiDAR data to actually get some genre identification as well in the maple ash oak by doing some field sampling. So really some exciting new applications for existing and better sensors that have been coming out. On the idea of LiDAR, so moving to a ground-based version of LiDAR is, we've all are probably familiar with Google Streets and Google Street Maps. There's, another partnership that we have is with Cyclomedia, and they have their versions, and using ground-based street-level imagery and LiDAR, we're able to auto-extract out public trees or private trees and very accurately measure them, as well as measure certain elements like the tree height, the size of the tree, the size of the canopy. So this top image shows you how we've extracted out those tree points. The left image is some more exciting applications for it, because what we're doing is looking at the distance of the tree to overhead utility lines, and as well as how much of the canopy is currently impacted by utility lines or currently impacting them. This is really exciting because we can overlay, the species of the tree and understand the growth rate and start to better predict when trees will start to impact, overhead utilities. This could be any sort of asset that you're measuring, but this is all can be done automatically, auto-extracted with that ground-based LiDAR once you have it, and you can run all sorts of different analysis of it. Speaking on the bottom-up part is the concept of having web-based tree inventory software. So here is a version of our Tree Keeper software. A lot of people have done tree inventories or assessments of their community, and it's really important to keep that up to date, and it's really important to have a living, breathing version of it, as well as to create a public interface of it. So here is an example of a public version facing of that software. And you can see on the left-hand side, we're talking about the benefits of the trees. And this is a way that the homeowners can engage and understand their urban forest or the community's urban forest right out their door. But if you log in as a user, you're actually able to edit the tree site and start creating work orders and work histories and understand the performance of that tree. So this is a big concern is to keep our assets up to date. But particularly, we have an upcoming webinar in September on the concept of using Tree Keeper software to inform and defend your budget. So if you can make data-driven decisions, you can do that. And then I'm just going to wrap it up here with the concept of our phone. So there's a lot of apps. I encourage you to download and play with different apps. But one of the things that we're working on with partnership with Microsoft is the concept of Internet of Things and the connected environment. We want to connect trees into that environment and create a smart landscape so that we can get real-time data. So we have sensors out there in the environment that are measuring things like soil moisture, air temperature, ambient temperature, as well as tilt. And that's really exciting because it can give us a lot of good data about our trees in real time and see how they're performing. So more to come on that front, but it's another way that I think that our phones can empower, and the internet and the technology can empower our decision and make better decisions without overwhelming us. All right, so that's your brief intro to technology. Now I'm going to turn it over to Danny, and she is going to talk to us about the trees, the power horse, if you will. So Danny, I am making you the presenter right now.
That's great, thanks Josh. I will just share my screen, just one second. Okay, so hopefully now you should all be able to see my slideshow. Is that coming up okay, Josh?
Yep, I can see it.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to move now on sort of from Josh's talking sort of speech about technology and move sort of through trees and towards people, which Hayley's going to talk about in a moment. So as Josh has said, technology is being used across the globe in order to reduce CO2 emissions and tackle our ever ever-growing climate emergency. And today I'm going to be talking about one of those more simple solutions, which is trees. And we're going to start with our first poll question here. So it would be really interesting just to get a feel for sort of you as listeners and whether you have any sort of tree active groups within your community at the moment. So yes, you know of at least one, you're an active member, no, you don't have any, it's not that kind of place, or no, you'd really love to see some emerge. So off you go.
All right, it is open and people are actively voting, figuring it out. Leave it open for just a couple more seconds here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close it out. And Danny, it looks like right at 50% have at least one, and then the other are working on it and would love to have some happen.
Yeah, that's really great. Actually, that's a really positive first start. So nice to see that, you know, half of you already know of a one within your community, but also how many of you are already active members but would like to see some more emerge. And hopefully the things that I'm going to very briefly touch on today, and also the things that Hayley's going to talk about in a bit more detail, will be sort of inspiring and give you some ideas for new ones if you would like to take it further. So, oh, sorry, 1 second. There we go. So trees do play a huge part in regulating our natural environment, our urban spaces, and our health and well-being. To mention just a few, trees impact on our natural environment through acting as a surface water flood prevention tool. Sorry, I'm just having a little trouble with it moving forward. Okay, there we go. They are excellent at mitigating climate change and improving air quality. They provide food and habitats for wildlife and are a major component of our ecosystems. Trees also protect us in our day-to-day lives through their provision of shade and UV protection. And I know that in areas, you know, for example, Australia, where temperatures are soaring at this time of year, trees are actually seriously being looked at as a resource in urban planning for that very reason. They also provide a sense of place, improved productivity, recovery times from illness can be reduced, and they also reduce stress. Very differently from all of these benefits we've just talked about, trees actually also impact on our economy, increasing footfall on high streets, the property value, and when planted in the right place can actually reduce the cost of air conditioning or heating bills. Through stories and images, we know that the relationship between trees and people is something which has been long established within our communities. For example, the 1217 Charter of the Forest, which was first sealed by the King and issued at St Paul's Cathedral in London, so it's a long, long time ago, and it did establish the right to access royal forests for people. Now, in 2020, it is the 803rd anniversary of this charter, and the Woodland Trust here in the UK are promoting people to sign up for the sort of updated Charter for Trees, Woods and People, which sets out the modern day relationship between people and trees and a real vision for the future. So what I kind of want to talk about now is how this relationship that's just been there for such a long time and has always been really strong within our communities, how this links to technology. As Josh has already touched on, there are so many different technologies that we're using at the moment. And one of those that we use a lot at Treeconomics is iTreeEco. We use this software to help communicate the benefits of trees in a common language which can be understood by everyone, whether they're tree people or not. And that's because we're able to express the value of a tree in terms such as kilograms, pounds, dollars, and it does really enable people to understand and truly appreciate the magnificent work of our trees worldwide. So, as part of our eco projects, we often engage members of the community to support in collecting field data to populate the sample project. And I'm going to talk about one or two of our current projects and how we've used technology to bring trees and people together. So before I go any further, I've got another poll question. I'm going to hand over to Josh, but would you like to see a community-led tree valuation project in your area?
All right, so we're getting some good questions in too. So feel free to go ahead and ask your questions about anything that you are interested in, whether it's technology or iTree or trees. All right, looks like most people have voted in this. So um, looks like people came to the right place, Danny, that a lot are interested.
That's really great to see, actually. I mean, 78% really keen, and actually 21% has already happened. That's nearly everybody. So brilliant. That's good. Yeah, good webinar to have joined, everybody. So I'm not going to talk in a lot of detail because we've got quite a short time today, but I'm hopefully just going to give you a couple of little insights into some current projects that we've got going on and how they've managed to use trees as a way to reach their community and how communities can benefit the trees in a city. So as part of our Plymouth project, we trained and worked with Plymouth City Council staff along with their well-established Plymouth Tree Partnership Group and local volunteers. This project did upskill the already hard-working network of volunteers who regularly support Plymouth and Plymouth Tree Partnership projects, and it provided education and training for those living locally with an interest. This statement was provided by Plymouth project leader for their report, and I just thought it really summarised the volunteer effort so brilliantly. It was a huge undertaking, but the team rose to the challenge. The involvement of Plymouth passionate volunteers in surveying has enabled the team to become more knowledgeable about tree surveying methodologies, explore forgotten corners of the city, observe and appreciate our urban forest like never before. Now, alongside this project that we've been running in Plymouth, we also launched a very similar project in Cambridge this year in collaboration with Forest Research, and we expected to run the project in a very similar way to the way we'd run Plymouth the previous summer. We plan to engage a group of local volunteers, run a practical training session, and support the volunteers in collecting field data on both public and private land. However, we had not quite anticipated the wave of changes that were due to come because of the COVID-19 pandemic, because really we didn't know at that point, and nor did anybody. I recall our initial setup meeting just a week or two before the UK entered lockdown, discussing our plans and the possible alterations we might need to make. Of course, most field data does need to be collected during the summer when the leaves were on the trees, and it quickly became apparent that this just wasn't going to be possible. The options were either postpone it till next year or potentially find another solution. So we all sort of got together and we decided to take a really innovative approach, redesign the whole programme of field data collection and develop a new citizen science approach. So we designed a range of resources which would enable university students and homeowners to carry out surveys on their own private property without the need for this normal sort of face-to-face practical training that we would deliver. As part of the pack that we produced, there was a video which you can see the front image for on screen, and Nadine's going to send out a link to that, and it's available on our website if you're interested in taking a look at the actual video. And alongside that, we produced a really detailed instruction manual and a leaflet to support them in carrying out their surveys. The nice thing about this project is sort of the variation from the community groups that we would engage, because it had the potential to engage with a completely different group of people and communicate the benefits of Cambridge's trees with people who perhaps before the project and before the information arrived on their doorstep had not really considered the tree standing in their back garden as a climate change mitigation tool or an asset. It was, perhaps merely just a frustration dropping leaves every year and blocking out light. And it really is quite amazing to think that even in the middle of this pandemic, in this really strange time, people still have the commitment and the passion to go out and survey trees to find out the value of the trees that are surrounding them in their environment. Hayley's going to talk a bit later about some of the really wonderful initiatives which have happened at the end of their eco project, and I think you'll find that really interesting. They are now in Plymouth at the stage where their data collection is complete. The data has been analysed within iTree, and the final report is due to be completed in the coming weeks. There are many, different directions that local authorities and private organisations take following an eco study such as this, and many of them are really strongly focused on sharing the evidence that they collect and the information and being able to engage with their local community. And I just thought it'd be a really nice way to finish up and a great opportunity to share some of the really nice successes that we've seen both in the UK and worldwide just to hopefully provide a bit of inspiration for future projects. So several UK-based eco projects have produced a tree trail within their community. One of these is the Torbay tree trail that you can see here on screen. One of the really nice things about this one was they actually were able to engage the NHS, which in the UK is our National Health Service, and they supported the project, and actually things like the trail maps were even distributed from the local doctor's surgery in addition to the sort of normal community hubs that might support this kind of project. This lovely example here is a tree trail which was set up in Adelaide in Australia. The project, as you can probably guess from the image, had a really large focus on engaging schools and young children in the benefits of trees. The tree tags were actually even designed by local children, and I thought it was a really inspiring idea, and it would be wonderful to see more projects like this in the future, and indeed in the UK. And the final one that I just wanted to show you is tree tags. So these are a really fantastic way of being able to share the value of particular prominent trees very subtly, sort of within the public environment. I actually think they could be a really great way to set up a tree trail. And on screen, there are some examples here from the UK, the Netherlands, Sweden, and of course Australia that we've just mentioned briefly there. It would be really great to hear about any similar sort of community-based projects that are going on. So if you do know of any, please do get in touch and share those with us, because people quite often ask, you know, what are the impacts of these kind of studies? What do people do after they've collected the data? And it's really nice to be able to share some examples with them. So we're now at the end of this section. I hope it's been interesting to hear very briefly about and see some examples of some community-based tree projects. It's a real whistle-stop tour, so please do take a look at the links that Nadine has sent through, and on our website if you're interested, because there's a lot more information about each of those on there. I'm going to hand back over to Josh now, because he's going to enable Hayley to start her speech. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Danny. All right, Hayley, I think you're ready to take it away there.
Lovely, thank you very much. So hopefully you can see my screen.
Sure can, and you sound good.
Brilliant, thank you. So yeah, so I'd just like to talk about obviously the people element of tree projects and our experiences here in Plymouth in terms of how we've worked with the community to increase engagement and participation in our local tree agenda, and the benefits of this for us and our longer term strategy. And I'll sort of touch on the different projects that we've been supported with by Treeconomics and our sort of wider plan. So first, I think we're just going to go to a quick poll just to ask you, so when working with the community, what would be your primary goal? So would it be education, grassroots support, local advocates, increasing budget, or engagement?
Yeah, good point. I think it's always important to think about when you're working with your community, what do you want out of it, right? Got to have a goal first.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. So if you want to vote, you better do it now. All right. So pretty evenly split here, Hayley, between education and engagement. It's interesting.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. And I mean, for us, engagement is absolutely key, but all of these are, you know, sort of really powerful benefits when you're engaging with the community. And education, I think, and engagement kind of go hand in hand, really, in terms of letting people know what the benefits are for tree planting, and then obviously getting them involved as well is key to successful projects, as I will go on to talk about. So in terms of my presentation, I just wanted to kind of give you a bit of context about Plymouth Tree Partnership and the plan for trees in Plymouth, really, and what we're looking to achieve over the next 15 years in terms of engagement with the community. The projects that we've sort of launched in the first year of our plan for trees. So the iTree Eco report that Danny sort of touched on and talked about that we're nearly at completion stage for, and other tree planting projects, and sort of feeding back on our experiences of community engagement with those. And then just talking about the tree warden scheme that we use and sort of coordinate with at Plymouth Tree Partnership, and the importance of that really for successful tree planting projects and aftercare. So in terms of Plymouth Tree Partnership, so we are a small charity. We registered in 2016. Before that, we were sort of under the wing of the council, and that kind of changed up. So we still work extremely closely with the Green Estate team in the City Council to collaborate on tree planting projects. We're a key partner in the Plymouth Plan for Trees strategy, which was formed by a steering group of local partners, including the National Charity Woodland Trust and National Trust, a local housing association, and sort of the Plymouth Open Spaces Network, which is another not-for-profit sort of community group in Plymouth. So we're a fantastic network across the city working together for the local tree agenda. Plymouth Tree Partnership also works to sort of coordinate other tree planting projects as well. So we'll look for different funding pots, sort of corporate funding and community funding, and residents will come to us directly with tree planting sort of projects and ideas, and we'll work with them directly to achieve as many as possible. We also coordinate a group of volunteers under the tree warden scheme, which I will talk about in a bit more detail later on, and really heavy on the sort of education and promotion of the tree agenda as well, with our Winter Talk series, where we have different guest speakers coming in to talk about all the different types of tree management and sort of issues and challenges, just to sort of educate people on and how to get involved really with trees in their local area. So I think key also is just that because we're a third party between residents and the council, I think that's where we add a lot of value, in that we're that middleman in communication. So I'll go through it more with our Seagrave Road project, but we can often sort of facilitate discussions in a more positive way than would otherwise happen. So in terms of our plan for Plymouth, our plan for trees, so it's a 15-year plan that started last year. The four key pillars really are care, enhance, promote and protect. And there'll be a link in the feed for the plan for trees document if you're interested in sort of reading that in a bit more detail. We launched the plan last year with a sort of campaign that we're calling the Plymouth Tree Challenge, and that will continue. And we've got sort of the hashtag is Plymouth Tree Challenge, so you can follow that on social media to see what we've been up to and the different projects that we've been sort of doing. But the four key projects that we launched were the iTree Eco Survey that Tree Economics have supported us with, a big tree planting project at Seagrave Road with local residents, a community tree nursery to set up the future tree stock, and a media campaign with a local media company that was setting up lots of different videos for us to really sort of engage the public and promote the campaign and educate about trees. So I just wanted to show you one of the videos that they've produced, just to sort of give you an idea of that. So hopefully this will launch.
In response to the adoption of Plymouth's Plan for Trees in March 2019, partners are launching our Plymouth Tree Challenge campaign to increase awareness of Plymouth trees, to promote their value, and enhance our tree cover by planting trees across the city. We'll cover the story of Plymouth trees and the progress of our three initial projects funded by the Woodland Trust and partners. The iTree Eco project will survey our city's tree and shrub cover, also known as our urban forest. Using a data model from iTree, we will calculate the value of our urban forest in terms of the benefits they provide us. We are working with specialist Tree Economics to undertake the survey. The community tree planting project at Seagrave Road showcases how the community can work together with the council and Plymouth Tree Partnership to help increase the number of trees across the city, especially in areas with lower than average tree canopy cover. The community tree nursery at Pool Farm will support and encourage volunteers and school children to collect and plant trees from the local area and care for them as they establish. The nursery is an experiment in ways to sustainably grow Plymouth's future tree stock, to enhance our tree cover and reduce our carbon footprint. We are off to a great start with these projects, but we are only just getting started. Follow #Plymouth Tree Challenge for updates on these exciting projects.
Okay. So hopefully that gives you just a sort of an idea of the types of projects that we're doing and how we're sort of looking to promote our tree strategy and just engage the community as much as possible throughout the 15-year plan. So I just want to talk a little bit more about our iTree Eco project. So you can see it was a fantastic project in terms of engaging volunteers. So we chose to complete all of our surveys with a volunteer base, and we're quite lucky in Plymouth that we have such a great network already of people sort of very keen to get involved in these types of projects. So we've used local sort of community people power to complete the surveys, and we really felt this helped sort of engage people with our wider strategy and promote the project. So Treeconomics, so Danny and James at Treeconomics were fantastic at coming in. They provided 2 days of training for our 45 volunteers, and they ranged from all of the different steering group and sort of partners of our plan for trees. So we had City Council staff, Plymouth Tree Partnership members, university students, residents, and volunteers from other local charities and sort of tree officers as well. So it was absolutely fantastic how many people got involved. So we had 2 training days and then a lot of rainy, muddy hours, sort of September to November, sort of surveying all of the trees. So it's 280 plots across the Plymouth city, but it was very good fun. So for us, in terms of the outcome that we get from the iTree Eco project, it's really given us a key foundation of data and a fantastic looking report, which we're looking to launch shortly, just to be able to educate and promote to the community the status of Plymouth tree stock, understand better how we can then steer our strategy to maximise and prioritise tree planting across the city, especially areas with sort of lower than we would like canopy cover, just to make sure that there's sort of equality and access for trees for everybody. It helps us to understand the risks in sort of pests and diseases and the diversity of the tree stock that we have, and just helps us to promote the value of our trees, to protect them within planning decisions and just getting people sort of more engaged, obviously with the media campaign as well. So I had put another tree video in at the bottom, but I think for time we'll not show you that now, but there will be a link to that in the feed. So if you want to watch that one later, then please do. So I also just wanted to talk about our Seagrove Road planting project, really, just to give you an idea of how valuable it can be to have the community involved from the beginning in such a project. And this is really the sort of bread and butter of what Plymouth Tree Partnership sort of does with the community. So we were approached by the residents initially and a local councillor because they wanted to replace the lost cherry trees along the grass verges on their street. So we talked with them, sort of consulted over about 2 to 3 months. We had 2 site consultation meetings with them. Local councillors were present and did various leaflet drops to keep them updated, and basically just talked with them about all of their concerns and what they wanted for their planting scheme. Talked about the types of trees that would be suitable for urban planting, the sort of the placing, all the way down to you know, their concerns about whether a tree would be too large outside of their house and blocking out light from their windows, or where we were going to plant the tree so that they could extend their driveway in the future if they wanted to. So just really getting into the detail to make sure that actually when those trees are put in the ground, they're absolutely happy and absolutely thrilled to bits to be receiving them. And the benefit of that is then that hopefully, and they have in this case, will sign up to our tree warden scheme and then be responsible for those trees for 5 years while they establish before they're sort of handed over to the council to care for them. And that's so important with urban trees. You know, they do need watering and aftercare for, you know, for up to 5 years really to ensure that they survive. Otherwise the whole project will be for nothing. So having the community involved from the get-go and for them feeling like they're their trees and really taking ownership for them is just a fantastic way to achieve that success. So this is just an example of one of the leaflets that we dropped in so that they knew exactly what was happening, which trees were going where, and they could contact us at any time with any queries. So I just wanted to sort of summarise, sort of based on our experiences in Plymouth, what our sort of winning formula is for community engagement. And you know, it's really, if you can have local councillors involved and the sort of the council working together with the community, that can also help with increased funding and just helps with engagement generally. As I was saying, having residents on board from the beginning just means that you have that aftercare and that engagement all the way through to the end of a 5-year project essentially. And I think it's just really valuable to have a charity like Plymouth Tree Partnership involved in such projects because we can mediate between the council or whoever the landowner is and the community and local residents and just make sure that everyone is happy. We're a bit more agile and we're a bit more on the ground and we have more time to have those face-to-face discussions and just make sure that everyone's engaged all the way through for a successful project. And also just, I think key is listening to feedback and just making sure that people are happy with the project and you know, making adaptations along the way if that's what's necessary. So in terms of community involvement, I think this last slide is just, it's key for us really just to get across from our experience that the tree warden scheme is just so valuable when you're instigating a lot of urban tree planting projects in order to have that network across the city of people that are, you know, that you can call upon if, you know, with climate change and the increase in drought and dry weather, having a network across the city of tree wardens that will come out and water and make sure that trees are establishing well. It just takes, it's a massive resource for 5 years. And if the community are involved in taking ownership for the trees in their streets, it takes the pressure off the council and it means that every single tree, you know, establishes well. And with the project like Seagrove Road, we also make sure there's a sort of contingency budget so that if any trees are damaged or lost due to bad weather or, you know, damaged by people, which can sometimes happen, we can replace them and make sure that it's, you know, it's a really successful project. So I just think community engagement will continue to be an absolute key part of Plymouth strategy for our sort of tree agenda over the next 15 years, and we will always make sure that the community are at the heart of everything that we're doing. So thank you very much, and that's the end of my presentation. And I'll hand back to Josh for questions.
Great, thanks, Haley. Can you just flip back real fast so people can grab that ISA code? All right.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of good questions coming in here. So let's go ahead and we'll start diving into them. I'll keep you on the mic, Haley. There's a couple questions about your tree farm and your tree nursery. Can you expand on, you know, how that was set up and like how it's working?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's still very much in its initial stages, and obviously with COVID hitting a few months afterwards, it's not really got up and running as much as we would have liked it to. It's being managed by the council at Pool Farm, which is a sort of a community park that is owned by and sort of managed by the council. So their plan was to bring in sort of volunteers and school children to collect tree seeds from the local area and plant them up, which is obviously great for engagement and education purposes. And it also then means that they're setting up a tree nursery on the farm because they've got plenty of room, and they'll grow on that tree stock. Obviously, we'll need to buy in a lot for the projects too, but it's just a great way to get generations of children coming in. I think if you plant a tree from a seed, it's just so much more meaningful. So that's where we are at the moment, is that we have quite a lot of seedlings at the farm, and they're being looked after by the staff, and then they will be transported out to the nursery, obviously once they've established and they're big enough to transport.
All right, thanks. Danny, I think this one is probably best for you, but I'd be interested, Haley, in your opinion as well. There was a couple questions, but around the quality control for doing an iTree Eco with volunteers. And then there was also a question about how do you teach people tree species ID, and if you know of any apps for that. So basically, how do you do quality control, and how do you educate volunteers for doing that?
So I guess actually that's kind of a multi-part question. So when we do the eco sample survey projects, we tend to do like a practical volunteer training session. So we teach them all about how to measure things like the diameter of a tree, how to measure the crown, but we do talk about species ID. However, it's not always something that people are really familiar with. So as part of most of our projects, we either provide people with an ID book, which will kind of explain, or as part of the Cambridge project, which I talked about, where we're doing it all using sort of resources that we're physically handing to people rather than doing that face-to-face training, we put in there a very small condensed ID guide of the sort of most common trees that people are going to find. But actually, I think the real support element of that and the training element is that a lot of trees that you'll see will be very common, and you'll see the same trees lots and lots of times in a given area. But we provided people with options. So say if they come across a tree and they think, oh, I'm really not sure what that is, I can't quite identify it, we encourage them to send us a photograph. If they can, send us a little sample of the leaf, and one of our experts will be able to identify it for them. And as part of the Cambridge project, we also set up a WhatsApp group so that if people are unsure, they can actually just directly message the project leaders, and one of us will get back to them and help them with ID. So that's how we sort of initially tackle it. Then we also have like a quality control element. So we go back and visit around 10% of all the plots. So we'll go back and do a quick check and make sure that the measurements they've taken and the species they've identified are in line with what we're seeing when we get there. And it's really important to do that because it might highlight that maybe people have just missed something on the training day and just need a quick recap. But it also might identify something that lots of people have also missed or got a bit muddled up. So that's a really helpful tool that we use. There is obviously always going to be an element of error when you're using volunteers, because people come from all walks of life, but there's loads of things that you can learn. People always go out in small groups of 2 to 3, so there's usually a couple of people. So if you've got someone who's really experienced, we try to buddy them up with someone who's less experienced, and that kind of thing. So there's loads of different things that you can employ, and those are kind of our main strategies. We also kind of encourage people to take photographs of the plot. So when we're going through and doing all the plot data, we can take a quick look, and you kind of get used to what you're looking at a photograph. But Hayley, you might want to expand on some of those points as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, so that final point, I think, as sort of coordinating the volunteers, if they weren't sure, we were just saying, yeah, take photos of the bark and the leaves, and send them through with the plot number, and we can work to identify it. I think there were some apps that people were using as well, and I can't remember the name of them now. It's been a while, but I think that there are loads out there. And they can be really helpful as well. Nothing's ever 100% guaranteed to be correct as they're being developed all the time. But yeah, there's loads of tools, and it's a group project, and we work together to figure things out if we weren't sure. And we were just really clear with the volunteers, like if there's you need any clarity whatsoever, don't just sort of put down what you think it might be, just ask the question, because that's what we're here to help with. So
yeah, I think
Great.
as well, if I'm going to use an app, it's quite good to pick a tree maybe that you know the species of, and just make sure that they're matching up fairly frequently. It's a good place to start if you're going to try a new one.
Yeah, good advice. Haley, can you go ahead and advance one more slide just so we can get to the last one there?
yeah.
And then, Danny, maybe another quick one is you showed the tree tags. Do you know of a template for that, and where someone might be able to get one?
I don't know of one that's sort of publicly available, but there are lots of photographs and images that are available online, and there's some really nice pieces of software that you could probably use just that are freely available online. You obviously have to check licensing and all that kind of thing, but you could probably develop one yourself quite simply, and it also would really depend on what information you've got available for each tree. So if you've done an iTree Eco sample survey, you're going to have information about maybe the species and the size and the sort of carbon sequestration that you've got. If it's not an iTree Eco sample survey, you'd probably want to think about what data you've got about that tree and design it around there. But there's not one that I know of that you can just download, but I haven't actually looked. So it's a good question. But it's lots of fun to design them. So yeah, we quite like the Canva website, and there's another one called Visme, which have got really nice graphics and fonts and things like that, and it's really simple to use. So there's loads of other ones out there, but those are just some of the ones I've used before.
Yeah, here in the States, I know Morton Arboretum has a template that they can share, and Davey, we have a template as well that we can share. So there's a couple of tech questions I just wanted to get answered. Well, we won't get to all of them, but one I think is going to be good for Danny and Haley. But the first one was around the sensors. So the tree sensors are still kind of in a pilot phase, but ultimately the host community or the person has an app on their phone, and they can see the data at any time that they want, the real-time data on it, as well as like a history of it and a backlog of it. So it's completely available to whoever has the sensors. And then we're working on integrating that into TreeKeeper as well, to kind of build out the inventory, So that's that question. There was a question about top-down, and do you know of any local authorities that have used that technology and been able to leverage it for something, to grow their program or to influence and maybe get more money or, better their program? And they specifically looking for UK examples. So
Okay. So if you've been to one of the other webinars, you might have already heard us talking about one of our projects in Islington. But if not, go back and have a look at the recording, because the tree manager from Islington spoke about their projects. I'm sure Plymouth will be doing some really great things, but obviously they're still in the sort of stage of just completing their data. But I know for Islington, they use their iTree data to gain further funding for tree planting. And I think it depends on really what local authorities are kind of what their priority is. Some people it is tree planting, some people it is just evidencing and maintaining their budget. So iTree Canopy sort of studies where you're looking at the top-down approach is really useful for looking at distribution and being able to work out where you've got really concentrated areas of canopy and where you've got maybe gaps that could do with a bit more planting. Whereas if you do a bottom-up survey like iTree Eco, it will give you a lot more information about the diversity, so the species that you've got, and again whether you've got lots in one area and not in another. So I would say it kind of depends on what you're looking for, but yes, there have been plenty of examples, and I can't think of 100 off the top of my head, but Islington's a great example. And if you want to send me an email or leave it in the question box, we can, I'm happy to talk about that further. And if you want to look at examples, check out the Treeconomics website, because we've got lots of our projects and reports on there.
The last one here is, and I think this would be interesting for all three of us, but ask, is anyone connecting tree data to other urban metrics such as reduced crime, asthma, pollution, elements that increase human health? I showed the one video in mine of the LiDAR, and I mentioned at the Green Heart Project in Louisville, Kentucky, and that's a pretty groundbreaking watershed research project that's happening here in the States. and it's all around cardiovascular health and asthma as it relates to trees and biomass of nature. So that's a really exciting project. And I know that Dr. Kathleen Wolf and some others have done some, compilation of research. And I know in Sweden is kind of leading the world in some of their research on nature-based benefits of human health. So it's definitely something that I think is a huge focus for a lot of people. And the best of my knowledge, iTree is really working hard to integrate that into some of their metrics. And iTree Eco has some of that beta right now. And I think that's going to be a good clearinghouse for how to relate trees and human health outside of like a research basis, so more of an applied version. But yeah, Dana, Haley, I'd be interested to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, I was actually going to say some of our canopy projects, our iTree canopy projects, we've used we have the Office for National Statistics, which holds loads and loads of data about people and our communities, and we've quite often looked at canopy cover and the correlation. So it's not a causation, it just tends to be a correlation between canopy cover and things like the index of multiple deprivation, hospital admissions, crime. I think we've got GCSE results. There's quite a few others. So again, I would probably say if you'd like to see an example, then do go and have a look at some of the reports on our website and look at the canopy reports, because there will be definitely some examples there. But it's really interesting to look at it, and it's nice to look at it at a canopy level, because you can kind of see the correlations between those measures.
Yeah, I think for Plymouth, it will absolutely be integrated in the future plans. So we've got some EU funding at the moment for green mines, which is sort of millions of pounds, and the whole green mines concept is about sort of innovative ways to sort of engage people with green spaces, and a big partner in that will be sort of public health side of things, and our iTree Eco project as well, sort of maps our canopy. There are lots of, say, sort of the poorer areas of Plymouth where actually there isn't a lot of tree cover, and they will be priority planting areas as part of that strategy as well. So it all does sort of get pulled in together, and will absolutely be a core part of the next sort of 15-year strategy for Plymouth. So yeah, Plymouth will be a good case study to look at, I think, over the next few years.
Yeah, exciting. Well, I want to thank Danny, Haley, I want to thank you very much for your time and your expertise and sharing it with everybody. I think everyone will agree that we saved the best for last, so thank you for that. There is, just so everybody know, this has been recorded. Everybody will receive an email link. There might have been a little snafu with some people being able to download the handout, so I will email out a PDF of the PowerPoint to everybody as well later today. And if you want to know about more webinars or some of these projects, encourage you to follow Treeconomics and Davey on our social medias, as well as sign up for our newsletter. And you will get a follow-up survey. So if you want to put in your ISACEU number, then I can submit that for you, as well as you can let us know there if you want to sign up for our newsletter and other additional webinars that you might be interested in. So again, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Danny and Haley, for your time. And I look forward to seeing all the great stuff that everybody does. So I hope everybody has a good day and stay safe wherever you are.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much.